Good morning to all. It's a pleasure to be here today with Luis Kawaguchi. He's a journalist, a famous journalist in Brazil, one of the most famous that I know.
Not
And
so famous, thank you very much, because you are my friend.
Ricardo. Ricardo is an advisor for risk management, risk analysis. He's an international guy that can help us with these issues today. We are talking about most recent energy challenges, and Kawaguchi will be our sponsor, our host. So please, Kawaguchi, take over of our meeting.
Thank you, Cavanha. Well, I'm from a Brazilian newspaper that's called Gazeta do Povo. And we have addressed some energy issues in Brazil, mostly regarding how kind of energy Brazilian government should invest in. And one of the most polemic subjects was the construction of a gas pipeline uniting Argentina and Brazil, because Brazil is lacking some natural gas that we import nowadays from Bolivia, and we are seeking for new sources of natural gas. But there are many issues regarding this new commercial agreement of the new pipeline, the building of the new pipeline, because Argentina is now facing many economic difficulties. In other words, Brazil, they have Brazilian President Lula and Argentinian President Fernandes. They are both left-wing presidents, and they are trying to support each other. So it's a matter of ideology. But on the other hand, you have some problems regarding payments from Argentina, because some critics of Brazilian president says it's not a good deal lending money for the Argentinians to build this pipeline, because they won't be able to pay this money back to Brazil, because they're facing many difficulties in their economy. So this is the main subject. Is it worth for Brazil to pay for this new pipeline? It's strategic, but in other words, it's a political project. When left wing president trying to help his comrade, so it's not so for the market. It's not so safe for them to support this kind of initiative. And we were talking about this subject in the Air Risk YouTube channel that is hosted by me and by Ricardo Fernandes. And we were talking, oh, this was good for Brazilian audience, so let's talk to people overseas. Maybe this discussion could interest them. And after we had this first live discussing this subject, we had a new information, not regarding the pipeline, but another movement from Brazilian President Lula. He's now buying a lot of diesel, a lot of petrol from Russia, and because he's now friends of Vladimir Putin, and we are going to talk today what would be this impact for Latin America. Ricardo, what do you think? First, regarding the pipeline linking Argentina and Brazil, Ricardo is a well-known risk analyst. So, what kind of risks Brazil is subject if they decide to lend money to Argentina to build this new pipeline?
Uh, let's try to analyze the different topics inside the big one. Okay, when you talk about the mining industry or oil and gas industry, normally they are not finding in easy places in the world. Yes, or you need to deal with dictatorship, you need to deal with political instability, you need to deal with economic issues, you need to deal with war zones and something like this. Yes, if you take into consideration the South America, you have oil and gas in Venezuela, and I don't think that easy to do business with Venezuela in this moment because of the political instability and many other issues. If you have as a second option, Bolivia is not supposed to be something much better or more stable than to deal with Argentina. So the point is, what type of risk you are prone to incur in order to get the oil and gas? Yes, this is the point. You have oil and gas in Russia, but you need to take some risks. You have oil and gas in Venezuela, but you need to take some risk. We talk about Argentina. You are going to talk about taking economic risks and financial risk due to the financial situation in Argentina. Yes, so if you are, it's something that you needed to decide if you are going to take this risk or not, because every time that you work with mining, oil and gas, hydroelectric, and big companies, you have enormous sunk costs, and this type of sunk costs can be very, very difficult to deal if the project does not work properly and you need to refuse or to phase out any project of this. Of course, you have some different ways to get some guarantees, like such as collateral or even private investors that take some risk or spread the risk among them. Yes, but it's not supposed to be easy. Yes, it's something that tends to be complex. So it's a matter of to put the right calculation in the piece of the paper and to see how big is going to be the risk, how is the appetite to take this risk, and how the expectation to get your money back and ROE or something like this. Yes, the return of investment, like any other project in the world. There is no big deals, nothing new referring to this regard to this issue. The second point is refer to the political agenda. Of course, if you have two left parties, probably tend to be easy to get some agreement, but sometimes to the easier solution is not the easiest solution is not the best solution. Do you understand? It's not just the political arrangement to make something feasible. If you have feasible figures that support your decision, is okay. It's very nice. You have political agreements. The problem is if you do not have feasible figures and you try to to make political arrangement to make it feasible a project that's not supposed to be feasible. This is the main concern, yes. So I think it should be based on technical solution, should be based on technical figures and technical analysis. You have no problem if you have a well-structured analysis, good figures, or something like this. The problem is if you do not have uh, a correct figures and you have your political leverage to try to impose something that's not supposed to pay back in the future. This is the problem. And the other thing that I think it should be is something very uncommon in Latin America, but when you talk about energy or strategic mining or something like this is something that should be decided not by the government but by the state. Yes, you need to have a very clear long long policy. Yes, to
A
strategic
state
policy.
policy, not a government policy, right?
Yes, yes, this is the main reason. And it's not just the state's policy, but this should be, you need to have uh, objectives, not short term objectives, but long term objectives, and a very clear view. The state need to define a very clear view in referring to these topics. Yes, this is the most important thing. I think if you have a good and a serious technical study about this project can be feasible. But the problem is if you just use the political influence to try to approve a project that is not supposed to be feasible. This is the main point. Yes, in fact, the political link can be good or bad, depends on the way that you are gonna use the political influence. That's it.
I think Ricardo made it very clear that we have some political risks, not only in Argentina, but Venezuela or Russia, if you are trying to import some oil or diesel or gas. And we have some technical doubts. I mean, especially regarding Argentina. Is it feasible economically? Is Argentina able to pay the commitments? Is the country able to? Is it reliable? Will they be able to pay back the money that is lent? So we have political risks and we have technical doubts regarding finance. This is what Ricardo said. Now I want to ask Cavanha, how about not the risks, but the need for natural gas and diesel in Brazil? I mean, we had some natural gas coming from Bolivia, and we had diesel coming from the United States. Do we need this kind of import in Brazil?
Yes, Kawaguchi, we need that. For natural gas, for instance, from Brazil has today a production around 140 million cubic meters per day. And if you have more than this gas available, for sure the industry will capture this gas and will use to develop some kind of business, new business in Brazil. Fertilizers and petrochemical. So the needs are very intense in Brazil. In the past, we were importing from Bolivia 30 million cubic meters per day. It's a huge volume. And but nowadays, Bolivia is reducing the reservoirs, the reserves, and reducing the production to Brazil, the transportation to Brazil. So nowadays, from 30 is around 18 million cubic meters per day. So we need more gas. And we need more gas, and we have Argentina very close to us. And Argentina has a big reserve of gas, shale gas, that's different from gas in Brazil, that's associated gas. It's produced in pre-salt, for instance, joined by oil. Oil and gas come together to the surface. And gas is separated from oil, but we cannot, let's see, transport this gas, the pre-salt, to the onshore because we do not have infrastructure enough to do that. Please let me show the Argentina project. So they have gas in the south part of the country, around 1,000 kilometers south of Buenos Aires, and they are planning two different parts of the gas pipeline. They have just have the number one. They are finishing the number two, and the number three that could go to Brazil, to the south part of Brazil, Rio Grande do Sul, Uruguaiana, is still pending of investments and money to do this.
It's the green pipeline, right?
Yes, the green pipeline.
The green pipeline, yeah.
Yes, exactly. This is the pipeline that comes gas comes from Bolivia to Brazil. So passes through Mato Grosso, São Paulo, and goes to the south part of the country. So nowadays, only 18 million cubic meters per day is not enough to us. We need more gas.
Which is the biggest production? I mean, is the one that comes from Bolivia or the one that comes from local production from pre-salt?
Pre-salt is we can bring 40 million cubic meters per day from pre-salt nowadays. So it's much more than Bolivia 18. It's much more. So and this is the screen that you can see the routes. They call route 1. That's just working. Route 2 working to Macaé, and this is the route number 3 that's under construction, planned to be finished next year or next 2 years. That can improve 20 million cubic meters per day more from pre-salt. But see, it's not enough. We need more than that. And so that's the reason that we remove here, please. That's the reason that the pipeline from Argentina for Brazil is strategic. It's a strategic solution. Of course, we have, as Ricardo said, political risks, business risks to have payments and commitments done. But it's a good gas for us. It's much better than gas from United States or from other part of the world because it's very close to us. But of course, if you do not have a good relationship with them, we could have problems.
So it's important. I understand that's very important for Brazil, for, as you said, for different areas such as producing fertilizers to using. Is this kind of gas? Can we use that for cars or?
Yes, GNV. Yeah, it's a little transformation and preparation for chemicals, and yes, we can use as GNV, exactly.
And was something that I didn't know in our previous a live transmission, previous broadcast, that was you have different kind of gas that comes to your houses, right? You have this one that is a GNV, and you have some the other one that comes from
refinery.
The refined gas, right? And you use for the same purposes for cooking at home, for instance. Is it right?
Yeah, it's right. We can have this natural gas directly from the reservoir that we can use in residential applications for cooking, etc. And we can make some small changes and put to GNV, to the cars, to move cars. The other gas that we have is a richer gas with more components, more carbon higher components. This is a refined gas. in the same production of naphtha, gasoline, diesel, we can produce this kind of gas. Is a refined product gas, but it's not used on cars, and the price is higher than natural gas normally.
But just excuse me to address some audience in Brazil. I'll address in português. Eu vejo aqui a Luciana, o Jorge Oliveira, o Eduardo, o pessoal que acompanha, a Sandra Capelazzi, que sempre acompanha a gente aqui nas lives, aqui no eRisk. Queria agradecer aqui por vocês por participarem aqui dessa nossa. A ideia dessa nossa live aqui é falar com a audiência aqui, que a gente está transmitindo também no canal do Cavanha, audiência internacional dele, mas obrigado mais uma vez por estarem com a gente. For international audience, I was saying that we have some friends from Brazil that are always following our risk analysis in eRisk, and you that you are watching from overseas, from outside Brazil. I invite you to meet us in eRisk. That is Ricardo's YouTube channel. And so, Cavanha, you were talking about how it's necessary for Brazil to have more natural gas. I think not only for Brazil, but for other nations in Latin America. So do you think, and in nowadays, you have more left party governments ruling in Latin America. And so they have also a political initiative that is called Foro de São Paulo, which is a political body that embraces all left-wing presidents and governors in Latin America. Maybe they will use this political body to try to sell Argentinian gas, not only for Brazil, but for other nations. I'd like to ask you and Ricardo if you think this is possible, or I mean, this is Argentina had this Vaca Muerta gas reserves. They were not found today. They knew that before, but now they are trying to sell it. Do you think they are trying to sell it because we have mostly presidents from the left wing parties, or now something new came and now they are trying to sell this gas? First, Cavanha, what do you think?
I think that they need money, and this is a kind of way that they can make money for the country. Natural gas is something that will be a long runner for every country. So it's not easy to make the energy transition without natural gas. So so every country needs natural gas. Is less problems compared to oil products. Is available everywhere, practically everywhere. So I think that this kind of relationship, political relationship, is something, let's say, sensitive. It's not easy to make a long-term contract commitment with countries that can change, Ricardo, presidents and wings every time. So this is a part of the game that should be addressed with insurance risks, clause in contracts that can assure that you can have this gas as contracted, as hired in the beginning of the process. So, Ricardo, what I think is nowadays, Brazil and Argentina are very, let's say, close in terms of thinking models of let's see, how state be present and in the business, the role of the government. So they are very close in terms. But who knows in the next 2 years with Argentina with new elections and Brazil in 4 years with new elections, they can be very, let's see, not close, each one. I don't know, Ricardo, if you agree with me.
I think political levers is very useful to improve business. Yes, it's very normal and it tends to make it easier to improve business. But the problem is, if you do not have the economic logical behind the business model, it's not supposed to last forever. It's going to fail in the future. Yes. So if you take a look at some years ago, you have in the United States Donald Trump and you have Obrador in Mexico. Yes, they oppose to each other for any topic on the table. Yes, but they made a wonderful job. Yes, they keep doing a lot of business and improving the commerce between the United States and Mexico, and it works. It worked pretty well. Yes, so should be the same. Yeah, I believe if you have the political opportunity to stay closer and you can improve your business, I think it is going to be good for both countries. The problem is when you go to Latin America, Latin America, they do not they have a lot of initiative based on government, but you have just a few initiative based on strategic view, long term strategic view, based on the state guidance, based on suitable figures or feasible analysis. This is the problem. If you have a good background in terms of figures, in terms of technical knowledge, in terms of a long-term view, it's okay, yes. No matter the type of government you're going to have in the future, the problem is if you do not have the entire structure and the figures that can support the business model, this is the problem, yes. And I do believe that the political levers make it easier for the Argentines to try to improve the business in Vaca Muerta. Years ago, the refineries that you had in Vaca Muerta, they suffered a lot because some internal regulations related to oil and gas. I think 3 or 4 years ago, we took part in a evaluation process of a refinery in Argentina, and the refinery was working pretty well, but the problem is due to the taxes and the different change in the regulation, the normal business model that they had years ago became unprofitable. This is the problem. Yes, on that time. I don't know now how is gonna change, how is changing in the Argentine regulation, in the tax to export or to import. Yes, but on that time, at least the company that I assessed, the biggest problem is not referring to the technical issues or operational issues. The biggest problem came from some crazy regulation that came from the Argentine government that put a lot of pressure on the refinery sector in Vaca Muerta on that time. I don't know in this moment, yes. So if you are not able to solve this type of issues, it's difficult to put to have a healthy business model, yes, that can thrive during the time. Yes, this is the problem.
For our audience that is watching outside Brazil, Vaca Muerta stands for dead coal. It's up in an area in Argentina that they have this, I think it's fracturing gas. I will address that with Cavanha in a moment. But what concerns Brazilians are some deals that were made in the past. For instance, with Cuba. With Cuba, Brazil has lent some money to improve the port of Mariel. They said at that time it was strategic because it was a port that was very close to the United States, and it would be used to connect maritime traffic coming from Panama Channel and going to United States. It could be a very important hub, but it didn't happen. And Brazil had lent millions of dollars to the Cubans to make a new port, and the Cubans paid with cigars to Brazil. So actually, they did not pay, and part of the debt is being paid with cigars. So it was a deal between the left-wing party and a dictatorship. That's a left-wing dictatorship in Cuba. So Brazilians are very concerned that this kind of deal can be done with Argentina. Like, oh, you can lend some money. They are talking about $700 million just to the begin of the construction of this new pipeline. And the main concern in Brazil is: are we facing another deal such as Cuba, such as Venezuela? We have lent some in Brazil. Brazilian government has lent some money for Venezuela to several different infrastructure operations and constructions that they never had this money back. So the main concern is Argentina able to pay back this money to Brazil? I think this is one concern that Ricardo has highlighted. And the other concern I asked to Cavanha, this kind of Jorge Oliveira says a lot of cigars, Monte Cristo. Maybe Monte Cristo would be good. The good cigars, maybe it was worth, right? Or maybe not. But I think, Cavanha, this gas that comes from Argentina is gas from fracturing gas, right? Is it worth? I mean, as an economic deal, is it cheaper? Is it cheap? Is it expensive if you comparing to different kinds of gas? For instance, the gas that you extract from pre-salt on the sea, or the gas that you can import from the United States, or the gas you can import from Russia. How expensive is this Argentinian gas in comparing to other countries' gas?
Yeah, this is a very good point, Kawaguchi, because the contract's not a problem nowadays. In the past, of course, Cuba was not a good example, but Bolivia, we have a very good contract with them. It's a take or pay contract. So there are limits of volume of gas, bottom volumes and high volumes, but it's around 30 million cubic meters per day to 18 to 10. So it's a good contract. It's not a bad contract with Bolivia. So we could have a similar contract with Argentina. So as Brazil made the construction of Bolivia pipeline, we can help Argentina in this final part of the pipeline to Brazil. We can help to invest, and we can have a contract that assure to Brazil the amount of gas, a minimum level of amount of gas to buy from them. And the price, the costs of Vaca Muerta production is low, is less than $2 per million of BTU. Nowadays, Brazil is paying 8, 10, 12 dollars per million BTU. So it's a good contract, a good deal for Brazil, of course, and you are right. We need to take care of all parts of the contract and make another way in international contract, supported by international, let's say, banks and a system that assure this contract. It's not a problem, really not a problem.
And do they have good reserves? I mean, big
reserves, big reserves. They produce nowadays more than all Brazilian natural gas production. They can export. They do not have enough consumption internally in Argentina to consume all the gas produced in the fracking, by the fracking. So the variables of this equation is in a good sense for Brazil. So with good intentions, we can have good contracts and assure that the risk be a low risk.
Mm-hmm. Let me address another subject, that is how the example is Brazil, but how countries from South America or Latin America can buy some oil or diesel or petrol from Russia because of the war in Ukraine. Let me give you the example of Brazil. Politically, we had we had a new government in Brazil from January 23 from Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. He's a left-wing president. The left party, the Workers' Party in Brazil, had deep connections with the former Soviet Union, and they remain believing that they still have these connections with Russia. So Brazil has traditionally, it has a policy of dealing with all kinds of governments, no matter if they are tyrants or if they are liberal democracies. This is the tradition in Brazil. But Lula, the Brazilian president, has started conversations with Vladimir Putin and with Xi Jinping from China in a different instance. I mean, we are open to talk to everybody, but this time what Lula seems trying to build is a partnership. He's not neutral anymore. He's trying to make a partnership with Russia and China because he believes there will be some political opportunities and maybe economic opportunities. So he's supporting Mr. Putin and he's supporting Mr. Xi Jinping politically, not only in the UN. Yes. Not only in the UN, but also in different forums. It's also attacking the dollar hegemony worldwide. So, and now we have some figures here we had bought in Brazil. We had bought from January to May $900 million US dollars in diesel from Russia. It is in these months it has been more than 10 times more than we imported from Russia in the whole 2022. So it's a big deal. It's a big thing, and Russians are offering discount of from $25 to $35 per barrel. So we can. They're big. It's a big deal for Brazil, but on the other hand, they are supporting the war. I know Ricardo has a different opinion, but we are not discussing moral issues. We are discussing like the economic issues. I mean, there's a opportunity that is very clear. The president in Brazil is trying to take advantage of the war buying some diesel. We have watched like India doing the same with petrol, oil. I mean, and in the beginning of the war, and now we have South America doing the same. I believe that maybe other countries in South America are trying to do the same thing. So I ask Ricardo, is it a good deal? Is it not a good or it's not a good deal? I mean, because and you can be you be in a good relationship with China and Russia, but maybe the U.S. and the European Union wouldn't agree with this kind of partnership. So, what are the risks and what are the opportunities for this kind of deal, Ricardo?
Uh, I think it is very interesting the way that the European Union and the United States try to address their problem to the entire world. Yes, and they just make a decision and they try to force the decision for everybody. Yes, let's remind that Brazil never stopped uh, to do business with the United States, even when the United States was invading Iraq, when they was invading Vietnam or Afghanistan, or making any type of take part in any type of conflict around the world. Yes, so this is something that is important to remember. The second point is the type of the sanctions or American strategy to enforce the leverage of the dollar against the different countries in the world is something that today can hit the Russia, but I have no idea if they can use the same tool against Brazil or against any other countries. Given some traditional allies, such as Japan, they are diminish their level of reserves in dollar because everybody is very worried about this type of sanctions. Yes. So the next point that I would like to emphasize is any country they try to define their permanent objectives and their goal to the future, do not expect that the Russian, the Chinese, or the American, or the European are gonna give our best advisors or tips for the Brazilian to the future. It's not gonna work like this. Yes, any country should be worried about their strategic objective in the future. There is no any sense to expect that the Chinese, the Russian, or the America are gonna decide for Brazilian the best course of action. Yes, this is another point. Uh, Another point that I think you have a big misunderstanding between the Brazilian leftists and the Russian. Yes, because I, I believe that in Brazil you have like a romantic idea of the leftists that is no longer in the world. Yes, if you go to Russia, Russia is a completely conservative country. It's completely opposite of the Brazilian leftists. They believe that they should be progressives. They needed to change everything. They needed to dismantle the family values and something like this. It's not the same way that the Chinese think. It's not the same way that the Russian thinks. Okay, so I think there is a completely misunderstanding. Even the way that the Chinese government see the capitalism or the way that the Brazilian see capitalism or the America, it's not possible to have a single model that's gonna fit for all. It's not supposed to be like this because you have different culture, different religion, different perspective, different peoples. So it's not going to work. What I believe that you work is if you have a very clear strategic pathway, strategic goals, and you have a very clear national interest based on it, you have a state, not a government, but a state that they define clear strategic objective, and they try to follow these strategic interests based on feasible figures, some economic relationship, and you are not supposed to approve any country to invading any other, but it's not something that you are supposed to solve. Yes, the correct forum to solve this is in the United Nations. That's it. You are going to address the issue there, and you try to solve it, to give the support or not. Depends on the values or the decision making process in your country, referring to international issues. But I do not see any type of relationship that if you are buying oil, you are uh, financing war. Yes, because if you try to do this type of logic is not going to work because you are not supposed to do business with America, with Russia, with British, with French, and it's not supposed to survive in a globalized world. Yes, I think it's something that you need to have a clear agenda, and it's not just a governmental agenda, but a state agenda, and it needed to share with the entire society. Yes, so this is my point of view.
Well, just I'm personally against this supporting Russia, but not talking about moral issues. Let's talk about Brazilian government. You have some points that we should address. This is not only economic points, but political ones. You have a problem that is in Brazil, that is inflation. And inflation is driven by some variations in oil prices. And when Brazilian government can import diesel, it would be good for Brazilian economy because you can control at least for a while the prices of diesel, and this is connected to all Brazilian economy in a way that our main infrastructure is based on roads and not on trains or other kind of transport. So if you're transporting food, you're transporting different kinds of materials, you will need this diesel. And if you can buy diesel in lower prices, it will be easier for Brazil to control inflation. And this has a very important connection with politics in Brazil. We had in previous years this kind of the problem of the petrol and diesel prices triggered a lot of demonstrations in Brazil, and especially from lorry drivers that mostly stopped all Brazilian main roads, and it stopped the Brazilian economy. So President of Brazil is concerned about how these oil prices and especially diesel prices, how this can affect politics. It will be a problem for him to govern if you have very high prices in petrol and diesel. So, and then you have high prices in food as well, and then you'll be a bigger problem. So this is the why he wants to buy this diesel from Russia. And there is a military reason as well. They want Russia to provide Brazil with technology to buy a submarine that's fueled by atomic energy. It won't have atomic weapons, but it will be fueled by atomic energy. And they want Russia to provide this technology. I don't think Russia will provide this technology, but Brazilian government thinks. they believe in Russia, they believe in Putin. But I don't think this is Russia is not interested in providing this technology.
And
But
Americans are not happy with these things, no?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
they lost the export of diesel to Brazil, and they are, let's say, losing control of Brazil relationships in terms of technical technology for nuclear issues.
On the other hand, there's something that is our president Lula is concerned. On the other hand, about his image with the Americans and the Europeans, because he has. I mean, personally, he wants to be recognized as a world leader. Like he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. He wants to have this prize for in his curriculum, you know. So he's trying to sell an image to be portrayed as the guy who will save the planet in the environment area. I think he says, "Oh, I have the Amazon region and I will protect it. I won't let anyone burn this Amazon or develop this Amazon region. So I'm the guy who's protecting the pandas and protecting the whales." So he wants to be portrayed as the savior, as this guy is protecting the environment. But when he's allied with Russia, when he's allied with China, the United States and the European Union will not allow him to be the most important voice protecting the environment. You have you have different people now. You have I think Mia Mottley is the premier from Barbados. Now she's the woman. She's the person who protects the environment. It's not Lula anymore. So Lula wants to buy a diesel in a cheaper price, but on the other hand, he wants to enter the US and the European Union and be portrayed as the environment guy. He will not be able to be the both things at the same time. So it's like chaotic. On one hand, he wants to take advantage of the war, and the other hand, he wants to be portrayed as the good guy. It's not possible to be the same thing at the same time. What do you think? Yeah.
But this is the question for you from Abílio Oliveira, Cavalguti. What did Brazil win being allied with G7?
Well, what Abílio is always following our broadcasts, and thank you, Abílio, for question. I believe I want to Ricardo's opinion, of course, but I believe that there are a lot of opportunities, especially in the European Union, because European Union will need more food, will need more raw materials. That maybe if there's a conflict involving China, for instance, European Union will need someone to provide this kind of materials. And the deal between the Mercosur, which is the trade agreement in South America, and the European Union says that not only providing raw materials, but some industries in Europe could come to Brazil and develop industry in Brazil. So I think there are big possibilities being friends of the G7, and this is the economic argument. This is the economic subject, but for me personally, I think the whole thing is more moral than economic, because you cannot support tyrants in Russia and China instead of supporting liberal democracies in United States and the European Union. This is my personal opinion.
Yeah, but let me ask Ricardo. Let's invert a little bit. Let me
Yeah.
the journalist now. Ricardo, do you believe that Brazil is enough stable, in a good view, to Europeans invest in Brazil?
I don't think so. The biggest problem is that the American, the European, they create like a bubble, and they live in that bubble, and they believe that the entire world they are gonna follow suit in this pathway. Yes, but it's not like this. The problem is the the huge number of interference that you have in Brazil from the European Union and the United States referring to our internal affair is very difficult, because it is the way that the United States and in fact the G7 they tend to act in this way. Yes, this is the problem. Even when we talk about technology transference, why we haven't received any type of incentive from America or European about the aircraft, aerospace, military
Ricardo,
technology?
let me add something interesting. So, United States are trying to bring back manufacturing plants and factories from China, from Asia to the United States, but it's still expensive, the labor force in the United States. So they are selecting countries around United States to implement these factories and manufacturing plants. Brazil is not being selected for this purpose.
Never, never. So you want to have a partnership, but the only side of the partnership is supposed to make an effort is going to be Brazil. I cannot see. And when you talk about tyranny, uh, look, okay, you have a wonderful and a vibrant democracy in the United States. Thank God you have just one like United States, yes, because during the entire since the the democracy starts in the United States keeps invading country, topple leaders, uh, destabilize different type of leaders, of tyrants, of democracy, or everything
Yeah.
else. So I cannot see any point to be a friend of the guy that is a vibrant democracy but can invade you.
This is the
So
point of our video here. Yeah, interesting.
I, I don't believe it. This is why I think the most important for a sovereign state is to have a long-term objective very clear, because it's just up to you. Yeah, you're not supposed to 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 receive any support for anybody. Yes, you are not supposed to count on your neighbor. You are supposed to count on your people. This is the main reason. Yes. So, in fact, for me, it's not. There is no point that comes from the United States or the European Union or China or Russia. I do not care what is important for them. I need to care what's important for me as a Brazilian. And based on my strategic view, I will define the partnership. And maybe I do not want a partnership forever, but for the next 10 years, that makes sense. The next 20 years, and I keep changing. This is the main point.
Staying on the fence is the point for India and for some nations in Southeast Asia, of course. Maybe at this time, I agree with you. The United States is not perfect. Its invasions in the Middle East. You cannot support it morally. It's impossible. I agree with you. But you have something. I mean, we have more cultural connections with the EU and the US rather than with Russia or China. And it's a cultural view, of course. But of course, we are watching what's happening with India. That is, it's neighbors with China and neighbors with. It's very close to Russia, so they have to decide if they still be on the fence, sitting on the fence, or they will make partnership with the U.S., which the U.S. is working to build now. For Brazil is different because we are not so important as India for the US and for the Russia and China. Maybe we can stand sitting on the fence for more time rather than India, for instance. But I'm not sure if in the future we will have to take sides. This conflict seems to be like a new Cold War. Maybe we have to take sides in one time, but in the future. But talking about energy, back into to talking about energy, what do you guys think that in the future we will have regarding this Russia providing cheap oil and gas for different nations? Do you think they can stand providing this oil and gas, or they will be surpassed by the US or even from green energy? Do you think can Russia can stand selling cheap energy for much longer time?
Let me start, Ricardo. Russia has a huge reserve of oil and gas. So it's an onshore production, very, very low cost production. So that's the reason they produce more than 10 million barrels a day. Brazil produces 3 to 4 million barrels a day, and the world is 100 million barrels a day. So for Russia is very easy to export because they produce more than they consume. So only if we have some political or military issue, they will continue to export their gas or their oil. Gas is interrupted by the Nord Stream 2 blockage. So nowadays we don't know how exactly we'll deal with the gas exportation. Of course, with India, China, but it's not so easy to move this exportation. That's naturally is for Europe, nowadays for China and India.
Ricardo, do you think Russia will be able to keep providing this cheap oil and diesel for different countries?
Uh, I do believe, but they won't, because you are in the middle of the recession. The recession is not gonna last forever, and since the war started, I believe we faced to cut it down on the production. So the trend of in the future is when the economy is gonna recover, the demand of the oil and gas is going to increase.
Grow very, very fast.
And the green energy is just a dream. Yes, can work perfectly in the head, in the mind of the Ursula von der Leyen or Greta Thunberg or other, but it's not going to work in a.
Why? Because all the mining is outside Western countries, and the manufacturing of this equipment for green energy, I call wind and solar, are made outside Western countries. So mainly in Asia, mainly in China. See the red bars in the right of this picture, that China dominates almost every metal and rare earth to make green energy. So this is a big problem for the future for green energy. And as Abilio said, it's a very interesting what Abilio said here. He said that ship energy will be more important than green energy in the short run. Of course, 10 years and 20 years. We don't know, 100 years, of course, is different. So it's a good point, Abilio.
And you have something that's very important, yes? The European blocked Russia to
Import
do
gas.
business with them. So if you take a look to the Germany exporting the figures, it's a little bit confusing. Like when you figure out how Georgia, Turkey, Armenia, Turkestan increase a lot their importing, yes, at the same pace that the Russia stop buying German products. So the word that you have is exactly the same, yes. There is no way you are keeping Germany, they keep producing and selling products to Russia in the same way that they keep buying oil and gas from Russia in a different way that came from India, China, or different other countries, but it's the same amount. It's much easier to hire a middleman to buy this product than to invest a lot of sunk costs to build up a refinery, and you have no idea how many years it's going to take to pay back this, and the cost of capital is going to increase a lot because the United States and the European Union is starting to increase the cost of capital because they try to curb inflation and they increase the tax rates. So the cost of capital became very, very expensive. So it's much more difficult today to invest in a refinery company to spend $2 billion than years ago. Yes. And in the future, it's going to be worse.
But Ricardo is a supporter of Greta, right? I'm joking. I see a paradox in the long term. I mean, you have in one side the United States, and the United States is the champion of green energy. Not only the United States, but the European Union.
Europe, yeah.
Yeah. They want the transition from fossil energy to green energy. They want it, but the one who can provide the technology in this is China, because they're dealing with rare earths, and they are the most efficient builders of solar panels, for instance. The United States wants the transition, but the China is the provider of the technology. And maybe China and Russia, they want to still keep burning fossil fuels, but the United States is the main provider of the technology that is needed to to mine new new oil
Kawaguchi,
reserve.
but there is a difference between technology dominance and techniques and manufacturing plants. So United States, as Apple is a real case. So they design, they make everything about the plan of Apple iPhones, and the manufacturing plants are outside the United States. So it's the same for energy, for green energy, for solar and wind panels and batteries. They plan, they can design, they can develop new technologies, but the time that they need to manufacture this equipment, they made outside the United States. This is a good point. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, but does Russia, for instance, needs technology from the US
Yeah.
to make new oil rigs, to make new investment in new oil
Exploration, production,
exploration? So they need the United States, right?
They need.
They are not self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient.
Yeah, in the long term, if the United States does not provide technology for Russia, they won't be able to provide oil. They will be like PDVSA, that is the oil company in Venezuela. It's not able to provide anymore because lacks of investment and technology, right?
Right. You're right.
Maybe in the long term you have a paradox, right?
Yeah, there is a dependence among countries. There's no doubt about that. So the United States depends on the Asia manufacturing plants because the labor force is cheaper, etc. And the other countries depend on United States because the development of new technologies and designs are made so that's a good thing one side because the world is interconnected. But the other side, when we do not have a good relationship among them, we have problems.
Yeah, a lot of problems. But Ricardo wants to say something.
Uh, I think the top technology is not, it won't be there in Russia to extract. However, the cost of extraction in Russia is not so expensive. Even with old technologies, they are supposed to get probably not the same level of efficiency, but because it is very old, the technology to
They can keep
extract
doing. Yeah, they kept
Yes.
doing.
This is something. The second point is China and Russia, they are investing a lot of money to try to overcome part of these obstacles.
That's
Yes,
right.
that is not supposed to get a wonderful level in a short term, but probably they will keep investing
Investing,
and
growing. Yeah, but this is a good. Our philosopher Kawaguchi said something very important. The paradox is coming. So this binary process of designing one side and manufacturing on the side with low cost, as you said, Ricardo, but depends on the evolution of prices and reducing of prices. Technology is important. So we do not know in 50 years what can happen, but in 10 years we know that oil and gas will still be important in the world. As OPEC said, we will have a 10% increase in oil and gas production demand. So in the next 10 years. So it's very impressive. So people are saying that green energy will take control of everything. Is not true. So we will depend on oil and gas. And you're right one side, because Russia has a huge reserve and can produce with low costs, with low technology, of course. They do not have high technologies in this case.
Well, if you like this broadcast, please support us. Uh, give us your like Cavanha.com channel and a risk at the YouTube channel. Please support us. We have, if you want to watch live our broadcast, you should address Cavanha's channel because he's broadcasting on Mondays morning. And if you prefer to, I'm talking about Brazil time. and you can watch our broadcast on Tuesdays and on Fridays at 7 p.m. Brazil local time. I'd like to say thank you for both Ricardo and Cavanha, and we have to end this live now. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you, Cavanha, for broadcasting for a risk as well.
It was a pleasure for me, Ricardo and Kawaguchi. It was a real pleasure. Thanks so much.
It's my pleasure. I hope that you can meet together soon again.
Great.
Thank you.
Have
Bye.
a good day. Ending the broadcast here. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.